All right, so we are going to review the warm-up questions for the week of November 2nd through the 5th. Starting with question 1, which of the following diagrams accurately represents the use of gases in both cellular respiration and photosynthesis? So starting with cellular respiration, I know products of cellular respiration is going to be carbon dioxide, water, and ATP energy. And so I do see that cellular respiration is giving off CO2, and I know that the reactants in photosynthesis is carbon dioxide and water. So this is accurate. Cellular respiration giving off CO2, photosynthesis using that CO2. I know the products of photosynthesis is going to be glucose and oxygen. So photosynthesis is giving off oxygen, and I know the reactants in cellular respiration is going to be glucose and oxygen. So it's going to use that oxygen. So giving off CO2, using CO2, giving off O2, using O2. So A is looking like the correct answer. Let's just make sure by checking the other diagrams. Photosynthesis doesn't give off carbon dioxide. It gives off glucose and oxygen. So B can't be correct. C, cellular respiration, it does give off CO2, but it's not giving off oxygen as well. It's using oxygen. So it's not C. And D, photosynthesis does not give off carbon dioxide and cellular respiration does not give off oxygen. It's the opposite. Cellular respiration is giving off oxygen and photosynthesis is giving off O2. So A is our correct answer. 2, in what part of the plant does photosynthesis take place? So I'm thinking that this needs to be an organ on the plant that can get sunlight because that's what is necessary. So it's not going to be my roots. Um, the flowers, that's going to be where our reproductive parts are of our plant. A bark is more of a protection, like the skin of a human is like the bark for a tree. And so it's going to be our leaves. Our leaves are going to be where a majority of our chloroplasts are found and where photosynthesis is going to occur. 3, through cellular respiration, plants get energy from glucose. The energy stored in glucose originally came from where? So now I'm asking myself, what is the energy transformation in making glucose? So I know glucose is a product of photosynthesis, and that energy transformation is going to be radiant energy to chemical energy. And so that radiant energy originally came from the sun. And so it's not plants. Plants are gonna perform photosynthesis, but that's not where it's getting its energy. The soil, that's where you're gonna get your water and maybe some of your carbon, but it's not gonna be where that radiant energy is coming from. In geothermal sources, we're not getting our energy from geothermal sources. Remember, photosynthesis it means light, and so it has to come from a light source. So in this case, it's the sun. 4, excuse me, a caterpillar eats an oak leaf. Which of the following best describes the energy transfer in this situation? So I know it's a caterpillar, which we have an animal eating an oak leaf, which is a plant. And remember from a question previously, oak leaf, this is where photosynthesis is occurring. And so in it's a plant. And so we know that plants are they're going to make glucose so that they can use it for cellular respiration, or they're going to store that glucose. And that's going to be passed on through our trophic levels. So, if the caterpillar is eating the oak leaf, it's getting its energy from this leaf. So, both the caterpillar and the leaf gain energy. In this case, the leaf is not gaining energy, it's storing the energy. So, it's not A. B, energy is transferred from the leaf to the caterpillar. So, remember, we have that stored glucose in that leaf. And then, once that caterpillar eats it, that glucose is going to go into its stomach and be dispersed to its cells to break down that glucose molecule to release that energy. And so that energy is going to be transferred from the glucose, which is in the leaf, to the caterpillar. So B is our correct answer. Decomposers in the leaf obtain energy from the caterpillar. There's nothing to do with decomposers here. Caterpillar is a part of our kingdom Animalia, and our oak leaf is our kingdom Plantae. No decomposers that we're talking about right now. D, the oak tree gains energy when the caterpillar eats the leaf. So remember, the oak tree is not gaining any energy from the caterpillar eating it. The oak tree is going to get its energy from the sun when it's performing photosynthesis, but the caterpillar has nothing to do with how the tree is going to get its energy. So again, the correct answer here is B. 5, which of the following statement correctly describes the processes of photosynthesis and cellular respiration? A, photosynthesis and cellular respiration occur in the same organelle. Well, photosynthesis occurs in our chloroplast, and then our cellular respiration occurs in mitochondria. So then it's not the same organelle. B, photosynthesis and cellular respiration are performed by all organisms. Well, photosynthesis, they're only going to be performed by our autotrophic species. And we know that animals, they are heterotrophs. They need to consume other food in order to get their energy. So B is incorrect as well. C, photosynthesis provides carbon dioxide and cellular respiration uses carbon dioxide. So it's the reverse. Photosynthesis uses carbon dioxide and cellular respiration produces carbon dioxide. So it's not C. So that leaves us with D. Photosynthesis stores energy and cellular respiration releases energy for the cells. So photosynthesis is storing that chemical energy and that glucose, and then that glucose is going to release the energy in the form of ATP energy for your cells. So D is our correct answer. 6, a study records observed characteristics for 4 organisms in the table below. Based on the student's observation, which organism has 2 characteristics of all living things? So I'm thinking back to the beginning of the school year when we talked about the 7 characteristics of living things. And so if I'm going through each organism, organism W has teeth and scales. That has nothing to do with our characteristics of living things. Reproduces and grows for organism X. So we do know that in order for an organism to be considered alive or a living thing, it needs to be able to reproduce and pass on its genetic material. And it also needs to be able to grow and develop so it can hit that maturity so it can reproduce. So X is looking like a good choice right now. Y has hair and moves. So it does need to be able to move and respond to stimuli, but it doesn't have to have hair. We have our single-celled organisms that don't have hair. And then Z, feathers and eats. So it does need to be able to get energy, but having feathers, again, our single-celled organisms don't have feathers. So X, organism X is the correct answer. So which of the following organism is eukaryotic? So remember, eukaryotic means it needs to be from domain eukarya and have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Multicellular, it has more than one cell. And autotrophic means it makes its own food. So here we have a squid. A squid is in kingdom Animalia. They're heterotrophic, so not a squid. Here we have a protist, and this is a single-celled organism. And so we know that our organism is multicellular, so it's not B. We have a mushroom. Our mushroom is a decomposer. It's heterotrophic, so it's not C. And then lastly, we have our tree. So our tree is eukaryotic because it has a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. It's multicellular because it's made up of more than one cell, and it's autotrophic because it performs photosynthesis and makes its own food. So D is the correct answer. 8, the answer to which of the following questions would be the most useful in determining whether to classify an organism in kingdom Plantae or kingdom Animalia. So I'm thinking about the characteristics of kingdom Plantae and the characteristics of kingdom Animalia. So is the organism able to respond to stimuli? And so remember, if it's an organism, it's considered alive and it has the 7 characteristics of living things. And so one of those is it has to be able to sense and respond to the environment or respond to a stimuli. All organisms that are alive have to do that. So that's not going to differentiate between our kingdom Plantae and our kingdom Animalia. So it's not A. B, is the organism able to make its own food? Well, if it makes its own food, it's autotrophic. And I know plants are autotrophic. They perform photosynthesis. And then our kingdom Animalia, we're heterotrophs. We have to eat food in order to get our energy. We can't make our own food. So this is looking like a good question that would help me differentiate between the 2 kingdoms. But I'm going to keep checking. C, is the organism unicellular or multicellular? Well, in kingdom Plantae, I know my plants are multicellular, and in kingdom Animalia, again, I know my animals are multicellular. So it's not going to be C. And D, is the organism made with cells with or without a nuclei? And so this is going to be talking about our prokaryotic cells and our eukaryotic cells. And both kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia fall under domain eukarya, meaning they both have eukaryotic cells, which means they both have a nuclei. So it's not D. The correct answer is B. 9, Anya is observing an organism in the laboratory. The table below shows her observations. The organism Anya is observing most likely belongs to which kingdom? So I'm thinking about the characteristics of our 7 kingdoms. So does the organism cell have chlorophyll? Yes, it does. So if it has chlorophyll is found in chloroplast. So I'm thinking about our species or our animals that have chloroplast. Can the organism move? No, it can't. So I'm thinking, when I'm thinking move, could it pick itself up and run across the street? No, it can't. So I'm thinking of a stationary organism. Is the organism multicellular? Yes. Okay, so that eliminates our bacteria and our protists. And then, do the organisms have a cell wall? Yes, it has a cell wall. And if I'm thinking about the two different types of cells that we learned about, animal and plant, I know that our plant cells have a cell wall. So if I'm to eliminate my seven kingdoms, this one is the organism multicellular, eliminates our bacteria and our protists. Can the organism move? That eliminates our animals. So now I'm stuck between our plantae and our fungi. But then when it comes down to, does the organism have a cell wall and does it have chlorophyll? I know that my fungi are heterotroph, they're decomposers. They need to eat something in order to get their energy. But plants, they make their own food. They need chloroplasts. They have a cell wall and have chloroplasts. So this must be kingdom plantae. And last but not least, an organism is green and gets its energy from the sun. Which organism is the previous statement likely describing? So mold. So mold's a type of fungus, not necessarily green, and it doesn't necessarily get its energy from the sun. Because remember, a fungus is a decomposer. It needs to consume its own food while it's decomposing dead organic matter. B, a frog, that's an animal. It's not getting its energy from the sun because it's an animal, it's a heterotroph. It needs to consume its energy, so it's not a frog. C, grass. Grass is green and grass is a plant, so it's an autotroph, so that means it's going to get its energy from the sun in order to perform photosynthesis. So C is looking like a good answer. And then just to double check, D, mushroom. Remember, again, mushroom's a fungus. It's a decomposer. It's breaking down dead organic matter and eating it to get its energy. It's not photosynthesizing. So C is the correct answer. If you have any questions over this week's warm-ups questions, please reach out to your science teacher for more help. Thanks.